Thank you all for coming today. Very excited for the topic myself, community land trusts. It's one that has been on my mind to explore deeper and further here in Nevada. And so really excited for this opportunity in August to share this morning with you and learn alongside of you. So I am Christine Hess. I am the Executive Director for the Nevada Housing Coalition. I will be announcing soon. I know many of you have been engaged in our process around the American Rescue Plan funds. The Nevada Housing Coalition has convened a task force, and we are very close to releasing our recommendation to our state leadership around how we think the funds could be used for affordable housing, and that's the state's fiscal recovery funds, the $2.7 billion, with a lot of stakeholders, over 70 stakeholders at the table and a part of our task force, and anybody can join. It is about to get hard because we'll be entering into phase 2, but we will be releasing our overall recommendation of funding soon. But that's not necessarily today's conversation, but anybody can hit me offline and we can talk about it further. But that'll come out for everybody here shortly, I would guess in the next week to 10 days or so. In the meantime, it is my pleasure to introduce you all to Amanda Lakin. Amanda is my newest teammate here at the Nevada Housing Coalition, and she is going to be located in Las Vegas. So she is actually a first-time home buyer. Congratulations, Amanda. She is purchasing her first home in Las Vegas and will be there physically at the end of the week, but she has been with me since August 2nd, and she has been really working hard on our statewide conference. And I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to just update everybody on our conference.
Thank you, Christine, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm super excited to be working for the coalition and to be relocating to Las Vegas. Today, we are very excited to announce that our registration is now open for our 2021 Housing Conference. This will take place on October 27th and 28th. And in order to accommodate everyone's comfort level this year, we're going to offer 2 ways to attend. You can either come in person at the Culinary Academy of Las Vegas or virtually. And all of our attendees will be able to change the way they attend up to 1 month before the event. So if you are in person, you can change to virtual. If you're virtual, you can attend in person. And no matter how you attend, we plan to have a very robust and engaging event. And we encourage all of you to sign up while the early bird pricing is in effect until the end of September. I will be dropping a link to our registration page in the chat box, and you should be receiving an email today. And we just look forward to a really great conference and having collaboration and participation from all of you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, we're very excited to be opening up the registration, and things are really coming together, and we're looking forward to another great event. And actually, last year's housing conference helps me tee up today's conversation, because it was at last year's virtual conference that I had the pleasure of meeting one of our speakers today, Diaz. And Gene was a participant in last year's conference, and in every session, he was engaging, but he was in every breakout, and he used to say, don't forget about community land trusts. Don't forget about community land trusts. And as you all know, I am relatively new to affordable housing, so I'm like, yes, community land trusts. We need to all learn more about them. And I am really excited today. Since then, I have learned quite a bit, but I will be learning alongside all of you from both Gene and Nick and Chris today as we hear about the activities going on. But I'm really excited to have Gene here. I just have a couple things to say. You know, when we talk about affordable housing, most of the time we're talking about multifamily rental housing whose development has been subsidized by federal funds or tax credits to allow for the units within the development to be offered at below market rates, right? In fact, these units that I'm talking about and that we typically talk about have income level restrictions. However, there are other tools to provide affordable housing to all income levels and maintain an asset as affordable for longer than our tax credit restrictions of 15 to 30 years. So community land trusts are a type of structure that allow for the land that's being developed to be held in trust for community needs, including affordable housing, notably, and for today's conversation. One of the unique aspects of land trusts is that they allow for the separation of the land from the ownership of the home. However, they provide long-term assurances to the communities that these homes, regardless of ownership, will remain affordable. And they still allow for asset building, which is, of course, really important when we consider generational wealth building. Like you all, I'm here today to learn about community land trusts, what they could possibly mean for all of Nevada. We're thankful to have both Jean Diaz with the St. Joseph Community Land Trust, and additionally Chris Askin and Nick Chikar of the Community Foundation of Northern Nevada, and their role of activities right here in Northern Nevada. As we'll see, community land trusts are flexible, that can be tailored to the specific needs of the community in which they operate. St. Joseph's is in a rural mountain setting. Our Northern Nevada partners are operating in an urban setting. St. Joseph's is the standalone 501c3. Northern Nevada is a subsidiary of another nonprofit organization. And yet the common goal of both is to help the community preserve and expand permanently affordable housing opportunities. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jean Diaz. So Jean, thank you so much.
Greetings, everyone. It's great to be here. Christine, are you going to share your screen, please?
Jean, would you like to share yours?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay, can everybody see this okay? All right, as Christine said, the community land trust model, to me, one of the great things is it's so flexible and it is adaptable to the specific needs of each community. And that's what we're going to see today, I think, just with our two organizations, how different we can be. I'm going to go through what we do at St. Joseph, and I think there is no other community land trust in the country, in the world, it's now global, that does exactly what we do. And there are others that are doing things that we don't do. And that's, to me, one of the great things about the community land trust model. So let me start with who are we? St. Joseph Community Land Trust is an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization. It was founded in 2002 to address the Tahoe Basin severe housing crisis for low and moderate income workforce and the households living and working in the basin. You know, every organization needs sort of a tagline. And sort of ours are these bullet points in the beautiful picture there. Permanently affordable homes. What we do, we provide permanently affordable homes, rental and ownership, community control, supportive programs. It's not just the housing itself, but also supportive programs. And geographically, we serve the Tahoe Basin. And as far as I know, we are the only community land trust in the country that is by state. We serve both communities in Nevada as well as California. In fact, we have an office, if you look down below, we have offices in Zephyr Cove in Nevada, as well as South Lake Tahoe in California. As Christine said, the community land trust model has some fundamentals, irrespective of all of the programs that you do. There's some common foundational aspects to the community land trust model. And if you look at the top left-hand corner, just summarize some of the highlights. The community land trust retains ownership of the land. The homeowner buys the home subject to a 99-year ground lease with the community land trust. That 99-year ground lease, excuse me, ensures that the home is the primary residence. In an area like the Tahoe Basin, that's a huge problem. A lot of homes sit empty for most of the year because they're part-time residents or they're used as Airbnbs. We want to be sure that if a home gets into our program, it is used as a primary residence. The resales are limited to income qualifying purchasers to assure permanent affordability. So if a buyer buys a home that's priced to be affordable to 100% area median income family, there's no restriction on when they can sell, but when they sell, it has to be affordable to a family earning 100% of area median income at that point in time. As Christine said, it allows for equity building. So equity gets developed through changes in area median income, as well as we will only allow fixed rate mortgages. So every month when they're making their mortgage payment, they're building up equity through the amortization of principal. Plus, there also might be some tax benefits to ownership that help build equity and wealth. The lease also provides provisions to ensure that the home is properly maintained. Again, we're in this for the long haul. We want several generations of families to benefit from these homes. So we want to be sure that they're properly maintained. A lot of people might say, well, this is sort of an unusual thing. And if I lease the home, what happens if I die? Or what happens after 99 years? Well, typically that 99-year ground lease is renewable and it is inheritable. So it is an asset that is very valuable to families. St. Joseph Community Land Trust, actually we provide we cover a wide swath of the housing ladder. It's a metaphor that's been used a lot to describe the various stages of housing from homelessness to full market ownership. And we cover with our projects, and we'll go over those in just a minute, you'll see the range, from 30% area median income all the way up to 120% of area median income with our programs and our projects. Excuse me. St. Joseph is a membership organization. Not all community land trusts are membership organizations. Some are just controlled by a board as a 501c3 nonprofit. Some are membership, as we are. If I move on to the next page. By the way, this is a flyer. I just finished this flyer, but I realized it's so compact in terms of the information that's provided. I thought I would use this rather than PowerPoint slides. So if Christine can provide this, or if I provide it to you if you want it, just print it out. It's 8.5 by 11. You fold it. You have a nice little flyer that has all of this information. So what do we do? What kind of programs do we do? We do rental homes. And typically that covers the 30% to 80% area median income range. We have a 76 apartment project, Sierra Garden in South Lake Tahoe. And that's 30% to 60% AMI. Excuse me, we are working on Sugar Pine Village, which is a 248 unit. It'll be studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. That will also include an affordable childcare facility and a community hub that will provide social services using what's now called the Hub Navigator concept to provide a full range of social services to the community. Excuse me, we also have an ownership program where, and this is primarily targeted typically to the 80 to 120% of area median income area, because they'll have to go out and get a 30-year mortgage. So this tends to be for the moderate income area unless it's heavily subsidized. And there are two aspects to the home ownership program. One is we are actually expanding home ownership. We're building new affordable ownership homes, as well as preserving existing homes. Our Tahoe program, the Tahoe Affordable Home Ownership Program, provides financial support to income qualified households that are looking to purchase a quality home in the basin. So it's both expanding and preserving affordable housing for the basin. Excuse me, we also have what we call the Motel to Housing program or Motel to Home program. In the basin, we have a lot of the workforce that has school-age children that are living in substandard motels. And that's not a good situation for families to be raising kids. So we have a program where we've moved families that have over 33 children into quality apartments or homes. It's a program that we're very proud of. We also have supportive programs, excuse me, like our emergency loan program. It's basically designed as a benefit for our members, but as a result of COVID, we've actually expanded that eligibility to non-members as well. You know, if we had a member that had a hot water heater breakdown or their car broke down and they couldn't get to work, the last thing we want them to do is to go to a loan shark, one of these payday lenders. So we actually have a program where we provide interest-free loans. And that's also for the Motel to Home program. Interest-free loans in the Motel to Home program to enable the family to come up with the first month's rent and security deposit, the emergency loan program to cover emergencies that might come up. Also financial literacy and home ownership. For example, in our ownership program, we want to be sure that our homeowners understand what they're getting into, the rights and the obligations of home ownership. So we require that they complete a home ownership course. We also believe that financial literacy is a key to wealth building and wealth preservation. I think it's something that should be taught more in high school. You should have a course in financial literacy before you graduate from high school. And I think that's changing more and more. That's happening, but that's something that we think is really important as well. And underlying all of our programs is the concept of environmental stewardship. We want to be sure that whatever we do is sensitive to the environment, and that, like I said, undergirds all of our programs. So that's very quick. I know there are probably some questions. I think I want to give some time to Chris and Nick to go over their programs and answer any questions at the end.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jean. And yes, I do see a question there in the chat. And as Jean mentioned, we will we'll go ahead and get to all questions after we hear also from Chris and Nick. So at this point, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Nick and Chris with the Community Foundation of Northern Nevada and the Community Land Trust. Very thankful to have them here. I started last year in COVID, and one of the first things that I was able to get out and see in person and tour was the Sage Street project, which is a project of the Community Foundation and part of this land trust. And it really was incredible. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you through Chris and Nick's expertise, and also just all of the work they've done really in a very short amount of time. So I'll go ahead and turn it over now.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, I'm just going to introduce Nick. We have an interesting structure here. Nick is overseeing any of our projects that we've completed and has quickly become an expert on housing and was involved in our very first exploration visits. We also have on our staff Michelle Dugan, who works with me closely on developing the new projects. So Nick is going to do the first overview, and then I'll pick up to talk more specific about the Golden Valley project.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And thanks everyone for joining today. Jean, I really appreciate all the important work you do. And there are definitely some similarities between our community land trusts, but I particularly applaud the motel program, the loans, and the financial literacy. Those are all really wonderful programs. Christine, if you may go to the next slide, please. So I know that some of the people on the call may already be familiar with the Community Foundation, but we do a lot more than just housing. And the Community Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. There are several hundred community foundations across the United States. And our core area of work comes with philanthropy and charitable giving. So our mission is to connect people who care with causes that matter. And we really work with our donors, who we consider to be fund holders, and help maximize their charitable interests. So if someone wants to support the arts or to help veterans, the environment, whatever their interests are, we work with them. We also administer scholarship funds. But more recently, the Community Foundation has gotten involved in addressing some of these persistent issues and really looking at what can we do in collaboration with others to make a difference. And this led to our exploration into expanding affordable housing in our community. In late 2017, Chris and our former board chair and I all did site visits at some organizations based in the Bay Area to look at how they were addressing affordable housing and affordable home ownership. And we learned a lot from the Petaluma Community Land Trust. So that really operates for people who might be working in San Francisco, but there's no way that they would ever be able to purchase a home. But the Petaluma Community Land Trust is an excellent model. So we created the Community Housing Land Trust as a subsidiary of the Community Foundation in April 2018. So we are relatively new, but we've been able to complete 2 projects so far and have a third one that Chris will be sharing more information about. And if you could go to the next slide, Christine. So the first project that Christine had mentioned was through the Village on Sage Street. So that's a 216 unit dorm style housing. We really consider this to be bridge housing in the sense that there is no time limit on how long someone can stay at the village. So this is really intended for people who are earning between 30 to 60% of area median income. These are people who are working, or they might be seniors on fixed income who are struggling to afford rent. And you can see there is some income requirements to qualify to live at the village, but this is a rental housing. But moving forward, the Community Housing Land Trust is really going to focus on the home ownership aspect. And if you may go to the next one, please. I know that Jean had already touched on a bit of this with the concept of the Community Land Trust, but when it comes to the home ownership side, really the land trust is the organization that owns the land. But when it comes to a family staying there, they do pay a small monthly ground lease fee. So this would be between about $50 to $100. And the great thing about the land trust is that when it comes to the development, we know that oftentimes the land can be the most expensive part of the development side. And with the land trust, we are able to eliminate the cost of land from the equation. So for example, with the Village on Sage Street, the city of Reno contributed the land to that project. So that made it more affordable so that it could pencil out. And the same idea applies when we start to look at home ownership. As Jean also discussed, it's typically on a 99-year ground lease. And you may go to the next slide, please. So there are a few points that I want to highlight, and I know these slides will be sent out. But this slide here with the key points of the ground lease, it breaks down the responsibilities between the Community Housing Land Trust and also the homeowners if they were to purchase the home. So it does have to be their primary residence. Again, they are paying a small $50 fee as part of the ground lease every month. And they are responsible for the taxes, for the improvements of the property. If the family that's living in the home wants to do any significant improvements, then that's also done in consultation with the Community Housing Land Trust. Next slide, please. And with our work with the Community Housing Land Trust, we're focusing on the 80% of area median income. I know most of you on the call are probably already familiar with area median income, but we're just looking at the numbers from HUD. So you can see based on family size, what 80% area median income would be for families in Washoe County. And for the next slide, please. This slide covers the information if a family is interested in purchasing a home with a community land trust. So a real point to highlight here is that these homes are required for families to income qualify. So in this case, they would not be able to earn more than 80% of area median income. And frankly, with families that are in this region who are earning 80%, we know how challenging, particularly in Northern Nevada, it would be for them to be able to purchase a house and would probably be outbid. So this is one way that we can really have that first entryway into home ownership. With the model that we have, a down payment is not required, but the family is responsible for covering the closing costs. And I had already touched on a little bit with the ground lease agreement, but that outlines the terms as far as the resale, what the families can do with the property, and it also outlines the monthly ground lease fee. The last point to really emphasize, and I know Jean had covered this briefly as well, is that with the resale, it is not sold at market rate. So really the maximum price is tied to the increase of area median income. And this is one of the mechanisms in which the home can stay affordable forever. If you may go to the next slide, please. So if a family gets to the point where they want to sell the home, again, the area median income is the determinant of how much the resale price can be. And then as far as calculating the equity, that would be a three-part equation as far as the increase of area median income, the amount of debt reduction through the monthly mortgage payments, and then if the family ended up doing a down payment. The next slide covers an example of a resale. So this can show you how exactly the figures play out. So let's say if in 2010, The area median income was about $57,000, and the family purchased the home then, and they wanted to sell it in 2020. The area median income increased by about 12%. So the maximum resale price would be 12% of the initial selling price. And then we can calculate the equity that the family would have upon selling, which would basically be the total appreciation from AMI plus the amount that they had paid on the home. So in this case, you had a family that was earning about $57,000. They were in the home for 10 years. The purchase price was $223,000. And when they're selling it, they now have about $79,000 worth of equity. So at this point, I will transition it to Chris, who will talk about our upcoming Golden Valley project.
All righty. Thank you, Nick. Just so everybody knows, this Golden Valley project came up at the same time the village came up. When we worked initially on developing the village project, the city wasn't involved, and we actually had put an offer in on a 4-acre piece of property, also downtown. The buyer or the seller countered with a higher price, and at the same time, the city came forward and said, hey, we want to partner with you guys. We have a 5-acre parcel that we'd like to make part of this project. That made it more financially viable. At the same time, the city also said that they have some other parcels around town that they might work with us on. And that was when this Golden Valley property, which is actually 2 parcels, was first mentioned. In 2018, the city council did vote to transfer that property to the land trust to develop the single family home concept. But we really didn't get much done on that until we early 2020. That's when the village was occupied and had been occupied for 6 months, and we started to work on the Golden Valley project in earnest at that point. Also in 2020, we realized that if we're going to do this, before we do 20 homes, and actually at the time, the Golden Valley project was conceived of being 10 homes. We didn't realize how many we could fit on the property. So at that same time, we were approached by a couple that was working on a home that wanted to work with the land trust. And for us, it was an opportunity to actually develop the relationship with the bank, to put together all of the agreements and lease agreements and everything in place. So we worked on that property in 2020, and in January of this year, the first land trust home was occupied by a family, and bought by the family with a loan. So that was terrific because we actually did A through Z with the first land trust home. So we know what that process is now as we're proceeding on the 20-year 20 home project in Golden Valley. Now it's actually interesting in that we've already broken ground in doing a lot of work on the site. And we can go ahead and flip to the next project. The question came up about the 80%. The 80% essentially was determined on what is viable. If a family is not making 80%, they won't qualify for a loan to buy a home, even if we price it $150,000, $200,000 below market rate for that same home. So that's where the 80% came from, just to make it even viable to do the project. And as Jean had mentioned, that may be considered more moderate income, but based on home prices these days, they've shot up so quickly, this project certainly has become more needed than it ever was. So the project description is actually 16 single-family homes attached in the center. So they're not duplexes, though they actually are considered single-family attached. And on a piece of property across the street is an additional 4 homes. So that's where the 20 come from. These are very nice homes, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 9-foot ceilings, granite counters. We want to make sure that when people buy these, that they're attractive, that they're in fact beautiful. They do have front, side, and backyard space as part of that, and they do have garages. All of the homes are considered individually owned, and we actually will do a lot map, so each parcel is a separate parcel. We're having to do an HOA, a type of arrangement for the common space to maintain that. And it's in a good family neighborhood. It's just up the street. There's a single family homes. It's a terrific location. I think we've covered enough of this. We can move on to the next one. This is the location of the project. You can see the highlighted parcel is where the 16 homes will go. Now, if you look at that, you see a drainage through it. There's also a slope. This same parcel had been offered to a couple of other housing groups in the past, and they didn't take it because it would cost too much to develop. So that's something that we're grappling with, and we've pretty much addressed that. But it's more costly to develop than a nice flat parcel would have been. And that's one of the reasons that initially, when the developer developed a lot of the rest of the neighborhood, this was not developed. Directly below the parcel, you can see an open lot. That's where the other 4 homes will go. So that's essentially how it's laid out. We've worked through all of the engineering issues, all of the soil issues. The developer has put forward of his own money about $150,000, realizing he might lose that money if the project did not proceed. Okay, why don't we move on to the next one? Now, this project has its challenges. I've already mentioned that developing the land itself, doing all of the groundwork, is more expensive than would typically be found on a development. In addition to that, the material costs have shot up so quickly that that's also created initially for us at least another $900,000 expense just on the wood, but also wiring, windows, doors, all of these costs have increased. So that also has become a challenge that has happened as time has gone along. And finally, the contractors and subcontractors are busier than ever. So it's been a little bit difficult to engage partners. What has made it work is because people want to be a part of this project. They want to help the community. And we certainly use that to our benefit. I did want to share that because we have taken a chance and moved forward with this project, it is shovel ready. We had the city put in $135,000 to help with some of our early expenses. We have a donor who's loaned $250,000 that they realized would be lost if the project didn't proceed, to help us pay for the engineering work and the other early work that has to be done. And of course, the developers put $150,000 in. I did also want to mention that this is really possible because of this entity, the Community Housing Land Trust, being a sub-entity of the Community Foundation of Western Nevada. The Community Foundation has relationships, we have contributors, we have capacity, if you will. When we first jumped into working on the village project, our board got very nervous, as you might imagine. That was a $9.5 million project. At the time we signed the agreements to move forward on the village project, we had the gift of land from the city, which is worth about $1.5 million, and we had some donors who committed pledges of $1.5 million. That left $6.5 million unraised, unaccounted for that project, and so it certainly was a huge risk, and we're very well pleased that it all paid off and the community came together. One of the other things that makes a land trust difficult, and Gene can probably attest to this, especially when you're starting it, is that a land trust doesn't have any income. So you're trying to do an organization with essentially zero income. And just to give you an idea, the only income we have right now is on the single family home we did. We collect $600 a year. And once these 20 homes are done at $50 a month for a ground lease, we'll collect the princely sum of $12,000 a year. Well, you can't run an organization on $12,600 a year. So I think that it's been very helpful to do this, to launch the Community Housing Land Trust under the umbrella of the Community Foundation, because we can provide that level of capacity. I did also want to mention a couple of things. There's a long lead in to doing these projects. When we did the village, we just moved remarkably fast, but you don't always have that. So we've been working on the Golden Valley project really since 2018, but in earnest, we've been working on it since summer of 2020. That's when we started actually developing the plans, developing everything. So you need about a 2-year lead in at least to do a project of this scale. And so it's critical that we be thinking about what are we going to be doing in 2022, in 2023, in 2024, and starting to work on those projects now to make sure that it's possible for those to happen. Going forward, we envision primarily partnering with developers. We have spoken with some, and these are housing companies, developers who do hundreds and thousands of homes a year in your communities. They have expressed some interest in working with us. Our local governments have continued to express interest and support, and enthusiastically so, in looking at contributing additional property because they've seen that we take it and we really do something with it meaningful and of scale. It's my personal goal that after we get these 20 homes done, that we start thinking more in the neighborhood of the next 200 homes, because we really have to scale up for this to be something that's very meaningful. And at the same time, even though we're focused on single family homes, there are land trusts throughout the country doing work on multifamily housing as well and co-ops. And that's something that we're not opposed to. If it's going to provide a wonderful solution for people and help them to build equity, we'd love to help be a part of that. And then finally, the Community Foundation is in the business of helping nonprofits throughout the state. And in doing so, we often provide coaching. We have a nonprofit executive development program. So as we've been doing this work on the land trust, we've been doing this work in a way that can be replicated. So the idea here is if we can make this Golden Valley project happen, we'll turn around and we'll share the process, the partnerships, the financial structure, and the expertise of exactly how that happened. And we can do so in written form and with coaching so that we can just have an explosion of land trusts throughout the state. We'd love to see that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick and Chris. And you kind of jumped to my first question, and we have quite a few questions in the chat. Gosh, I thought I was going to keep it to 45 minutes, and I bet we could actually spend an hour and a half. But if the panelists can bear with us for a little bit more than 12:45, I would love to go over our time and address a lot of the questions. But Chris, you teed up one of my questions. So of course we have St. Joseph's that is active and especially active around the lake, which we here in Northern Nevada love the lake and do consider it also a part of Nevada, since it is. And we have the Community Foundation with its good work up here in Northern Nevada. Jean, I'll start with you, but as you think about Nevada and you've been engaged with the coalition since its beginning, what opportunities do you see for Nevada with land trust to grow and expand in the rural and in Southern Nevada? And what are some first steps you might advise?
To me, as I said in the beginning, one of the great things about the community land trust model is its flexibility. And just between our two organizations, you've seen a lot of change just there. It is a model that can readily be adapted to every community and what its specific needs are. So whether you're a rural community like we are, like parts of Nevada, whether you're an urban area, Las Vegas, Clark County, Washoe County, community land trusts can be structured to meet your community's needs, your community's desires. It's going to take some visionaries. You know, Reno is very fortunate to have Chris and Nick and the others that have gotten that going in the Reno area. In the basin, you know, 10 years ago or so, Lynn Barnett and a couple of other people got together and said, this is something we think is going to work for the Tahoe Basin, and got it going there. It's going to take identifying some of the key visionaries, some of the housing advocates in the area, in the community, and to get together and say, this is something that we want to explore. There are a lot of resources. One of the questions was, well, how do I learn more? Grounded Solutions Network is sort of an umbrella group that covers shared equity programs that would be below market rate housing programs. It would include community land trusts, any sort of shared equity. There are a lot of resources, a lot of tools available through Grounded Solutions Network. I think between Chris and Nick and myself and others here at St. Joseph, we can be a resource. We, reach out to us and we can help. We can help understand what it takes to get going and what some of the problems are, what some of the issues are. Just if I could just take a second, one of the points that Chris made, which is very important starting out, is where's your money come from? You know, there isn't a whole lot of income until you get a lot of projects going. You know, I mentioned our two projects, the Sierra Garden and the Sugar Pine Village projects. There we are teaming up. We are partnering with for-profit developers to build these multifamily projects. They're large projects. We don't have the capacity on our own, but it makes sense to team up with us because of our mission to provide permanently affordable housing. And to provide the oversight to be sure that that mission is in fact accomplished. The benefit for us is that we share in the developer fee and we share in the asset management fee. So those revenue streams have actually been very important to sustain our organization and to provide revenue to support our other programs, our Motel to Home, or our emergency loan program, or even our ownership housing program. So I think it's important to be flexible, to think about different sources of income, maybe not traditional, just from the sale of a single family home, but maybe there are other ways like partnering with for-profit developers when it makes sense to do that.
Chris, Nick, any words of advice for our southern and rural partners? I know everybody's envious. When I toured Sage Street, of course, I toured with the Southern Nevada contingency.
Well, there's inherent risk. You have to mitigate that. I think a strong partnership. If you want to get out of the gate, recognize what you don't have, and get it. When we decided to do the village project, it was on a plane flight. So we flew out to look at the buildings in Wyoming. And I knew that if we were going to do this, we had to have the partners on the plane. So Leo, who is the head of Volunteers of America, who operates the village, he was on the plane. Q&D Construction, our vice president, was on the plane. He was going to build it. We had somebody from the State Division of Housing, Division of Manufactured Housing. They had to approve the buildings. And we also knew that we were going to need the State Division of Housing's support. And so they had a staff person on the plane. We had somebody from the City of Reno Planning Department, and then myself, and of course a pilot who's one of my board members who flew us out as a volunteer on his plane. So on the way back, we had that very frank discussion. We went around and we said, are we going to do this? Are you in? And then I helped to define what in meant for each partner, what they were going to bring. And halfway back on the flight, everybody said, yeah, we're in. And that's when the decision was made. And so it was made only with partners who were going to take big chunks of responsibility to help make it happen.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one of the things nonprofits bring, land trust brings, are a flexibility and ability to pivot and just some more agility than we might not always have in a purely public sector, right? So to be able to combine models is really amazing. And there are so many questions. I do want to address one from Carol Wayman, because it's one of my questions too. As I mentioned in the beginning, the Housing Coalition's been working with the task force to identify and develop recommendations, and we'll be releasing those shortly. And let me tell you, it's no small chunk of change. I heard the treasurer and listened well when he said, think big. Well, the coalition is thinking big when we consider the American Rescue Plan funds and the opportunities to actually impact affordable housing crisis that has been exacerbated by the pandemic that we all in this space know existed before. Well, we've developed a recommendation for an overall chunk of funds, and within those funds, we have identified 4 buckets of funding. As I mentioned, everyone will see that come out shortly, but one of those buckets is land. We'll be recommending to the state that the state actually set aside some of its American Rescue Plan funds for land. We do know and hear all the time that land availability and accessibility is really a big challenge when it comes to development overall, but including affordable housing development. So my question for both of you, as you consider the American Rescue Plan funds, would an investment, a set aside of dollars geared towards land, and mind you, remember, we're thinking of affordability, right? So community land trust would be in my mind, the ideal. Of course, we're still working on step 2, which is refining the actual distribution recommendation component. But what role do you see, an opportunity do you see for land trust to play with the state and its American Rescue Plan funds should leadership allocate funding towards land? And I can start maybe either, Jean, maybe for you. I don't think you've been on the task force, even though you've been engaged with the coalition.
Yeah, certainly. I think either Nick or Chris mentioned it, land is such a critical component in the economic equation for affordable housing. And for St. Joseph, we beg, borrow, and steal. We are 3 ownership projects. We are getting the land from the city of South Lake Tahoe for $1. Our 248 unit Sugar Pine Village project is on California state-owned property that under Governor Newsom's executive order promoting affordable housing, we're getting probably $1 for the 99-year ground lease from the state to develop that project. Those are very helpful, but having a source of funds where we can go out, we know we have some funds where we can actually acquire when it makes sense that we couldn't otherwise afford. That is a great benefit to help us expand affordable housing. So most definitely that is an important use of funds. Now, the benefit about using the community land trust model is the permanence of the model. It is intended to be permanent. It goes on and on well after the traditional deed restriction provisions would go away. So that helps make sense for any public subsidy, the permanence rather than an asset that's going to go away after a few years.
Awesome. And Chris and Nick, you guys have been awesomely engaged and appreciate your feedback as we've gone through as a task force to think hard and long about the opportunities to invest potentially state funds in affordable housing and what that looks like. From a land perspective, do you see an opportunity for land trust, whether it's in Northern Nevada or throughout the state, to come to the table and help with that component?
Yeah, so here's one of the reasons that the Community Foundation was able to do this so quickly. We do a lot of property gifts. We administer trusts. We have many other sub-entities. So, for example, this year we've received several different pieces of property in California and Nevada. We own property in 5 states. So we have been in the land business for a long time because of charitable gifting of property. It's an appreciated asset. It's what people want to give because they avoid the capital gains. So we're also in the business of grant making. So we could utilize the structure. Basically, it'd be the Community Housing Land Trust, but under the umbrella of the Community Foundation, to essentially have what could be considered a grant making fund for land trust to acquire property. The land trust could actually acquire the property and then transfer the ownership to other land trusts that would then permanently hold it. But we can move pretty quickly. So in some cases, if there was an opportunity where we had some funding and some really great parcels came up, we could acquire those fairly quickly and have not just money in the bank, so to speak, to acquire land, but also land that's available. And of course, we could keep it current on taxes and so on until such time as it's transferred. Our insurance is also very low. For example, any raw land we hold is covered in our existing policy. We don't have to take out separate policies. So there's some huge efficiencies you get when you bundle all of these together under one umbrella. So that's certainly something that I think could be a benefit to trying to get a whole bunch of these rolling out throughout the state.
Christine, if I may, just for a moment,
Please.
I too am envious of Chris and Nick. It's great having direct access to the kinds of resources and capacity that Chris and Nick have talked about. Unfortunately, many CLTs don't have that kind of access. We get a lot of support from local foundations, from the El Dorado Community Foundation, from the Parasol Foundation, but there is a certain kind of benefit that Chris and Nick have pointed out. as a subsidiary of that kind of resource certainly goes a long way to smoothing the road and helping projects come to fruition. I too am envious.
No kidding. I'm like, let's make sure
I'm,
we get these.
I'm envious
installers
of Gene's experience. I looked at his history in San Diego, and we have a true national expert right here in Tahoe. So I'm glad you're here, Gene.
We do. And, you know, I just love in the housing space how we all work together, right? None of us have to own anything. It's just really, to me, about getting to point B, which is affordable housing. In our case, Gene, for all Nevadans. Of course, we want that throughout the country as well. Gene, while we have you here, and this also intrigued me, Angela asked about your membership model and what that looks like.
Yeah, membership is open. We have different classes, individuals, families, businesses. You know, it's open to, and it's not very expensive. It's $25 for an individual membership. You know what, not all community land trusts are membership, right? San Diego Community Land Trust was not a membership organization. It was governed by a board. Irvine Community Land Trust, it was created as part of the city of Irvine. It is non-membership. So St. Joseph chose to try to get the community involved in the organization and the leadership. So they decided to create a membership structure. In fact, we have our annual membership meeting coming up in a few weeks. So it's open. It's easy to become a member. Anybody can join. We have membership benefits, for example, you know, related to our housing program. I mentioned that home buyer education course is required prior to closing on one of our homes. Everything's gone online with Zoom, and in a way that makes it more efficient for some of our homeowners. So there's a $75 fee for the HUD approved home buyer education course that we're requiring. If you're a member of our organization of St. Joseph Community Land Trust and you take that course, we will reimburse the cost of that course. So there are a number of, for businesses, we'll give them business spotlights in our newsletters. So it's a way to engage the community. And I think that's the main reason that St. Joseph decided to go the membership route, get the community involved, the community part of Community Land Trust.
Awesome. I'm going to, if you don't mind, thank you so much, Gene. I'm going to ask one more question here, but Gene and Chris, Nick, do you mind if I share the questions from the chat with you all and maybe collect those answers and share them with all the participants after the fact? Would that be okay? Great, I'll do that. So anybody, Mike, Evelyn, Art, thank you so much for your questions. They are all really good. I just, in respect for time, want to just ask one more question. Gene, it's actually for you, but it does play a part, Nick and Chris, I think, even as you've gone through your development, because it has to deal with your relationship with for-profit developers, right? As we know, we have a limited number of actual affordable housing developers or nonprofit developers, but for-profit developers can come to the table. And Gene, the question is specifically around the percentage of the project. What percentage of the project does St. Joseph get with the for-profit developer, and do you help raise the funds? And I think that also just speaks to your relationship and building that. And Chris and Nick, I'd love if you could just both really quick, we don't have much time, but kind of just address that opportunity to partner with our private sector.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Both our Sierra Garden and Sierra Sugar Pine Village project, we've teamed up with for-profit developers that are large-scale developers that have a lot of experience doing LIHTC funded tax income credit projects. Those are very complicated, especially for large projects like those. We don't have the capacity ourselves to do it. So we've been fortunate enough teaming up with Pacific Development Group and the related company on both of those projects. Pacific Development Group for Sierra Garden, the related company for Sugar Pine Village. What they bring is the expertise and the capacity to get through the entitlement process. And just for Sugar Pine Village, we just completed the entitlement process, 248 unit project in Tahoe Basin, multi-state jurisdiction, TRPA, 6-month entitlement process, unheard of for a project of that scale in the basin, in large part due to the expertise and the capacity and the resources that the related company brings to the table. They involved us because of our local connection, because of our concern for affordable housing, and recognized that we would be a good local partner to help them get through the process. They are providing 100% of the development expenses. We have no financial exposure, but we will earn about 10 to 15% of the developer fee and a couple $100 per unit per year out of the asset management fees, with limited financial exposure for us as an organization. So for us, it's been a very good way to help, especially Sierra, the Sierra Garden project. Very early on in our creation, that has generated a lot of the revenue that we've needed to develop the programs that we've had.
Awesome. Chris, in 30 seconds or less, you're just with for-profit developers. I know it's a little different, your model, but that relationship.
It is, but it isn't. All of the building gets done by contractors. With the village project, we didn't really have a developer. We served in that role. And as everybody pointed out, I had no business doing that. And it was a big learning curve, but it worked out. A lot of support, countless hours. But with this next project, of course, we have a developer, and we're relying on developers, and always will rely on developers. And they want to give back. They want to help. So it's just something that goes right back to the relationships and building the team, bringing to the team all of those elements of expertise and support and resources that we really won't ever have.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And I know people are having to go to their 1 o'clock meeting. Sorry if I've made anybody late, but the topic has been incredibly interesting. We clearly need, for sure, this panel in some way, shape, or form. I'm thinking even more actionable at our conference. Again, it's October 27th and 28th in person in Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, actually, at the Culinary Academy in partnership with Nevada Partners. It's located, they're co-located there. Registration is open. The link is there in the chat, and really hoping to see everyone there in person, but respecting that not everyone may be ready to travel. And so there will be a virtual option as well. So thank you again, Jean, Nick, Chris, you guys are awesome. So appreciate you in this space, and thanks for all the work you're doing for serving those in need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.